Alright, hello guys and welcome back to another entry of the Forever Build series, the place where we cover absolutely perfect builds, factoring in set bonuses, stat distributions, optimal subclass makeup, weapon choices, and everything in between, making them the best versions of what they could possibly be, and thus being this way forever because the game isn't receiving any more major sandbox updates. You could be watching this build within the first week of upload or even 3 to 4 years down the line and it will still be just as dominant as it was the moment it was put together. And today we are continuing with a super fun Stasis Warlock build that puts Stasis Warlock back on the map. We've got fast charging grenades, infinite high damage resistance, and an unmatched crowd control gameplay loop that works in even the hardest pieces of content. So if you enjoyed today's build, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, what is the main thing about this build that it has going for it that other Stasis Warlock builds do not have? So first of all, the only reason this is possible is because of a brand new set bonus that we got in the Monument of Triumph update, and that is the Coda armor, or the one that comes from the Prophecy dungeon. We are using the full 4-piece here. The reason for that is because it has the 4-piece perk So Very Thin that says final blows with light weapons grants additional grenade energy. Final blows with dark or kinetic weapons grants additional melee energy. And then rapid final blows that alternate between light and darkness grant a short period of damage resistance. Now, the reason we are taking this is because that is effectively Demolitionist. Now, that perk is where you get kills with a weapon that has the perk and it gives you grenade energy back. But the thing is, if you use a light weapon here, you actually get grenade energy back for destroying constructs. Now, if we are on Stasis Warlock with Rhymeco Raiment, whenever we throw our stasis turret, it creates these stasis crystals and it makes them periodically even after you destroy them. And if I was to break these with my Dead Messenger, for example, which is a light weapon, it gives me a bunch of grenade energy back, as you can see in the bottom left corner. And I can just repeat this loop over and over, but as you can see, I've got my full grenade back from just destroying the crystals I made with the grenade itself. And this can carry on forever, basically. As long as you have grenades, as long as you are getting armor charge and have ammo in your light weapon, you can infinitely spam this grenade. So that is the whole idea of today's build. We're just going to be making a bunch of stasis turrets all over the battlefield, literally just carpeting the area with as many stasis turrets as possible, and it's going to be easily done with this cool interaction that we have here. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the best exotic to pair with this is Rhymecoat Raiment, because this makes the stasis crystals spawn around your grenade whenever you create them. And also, when we place the grenade in the field, we're going to have the Bleak Domain buff on the left of our screen, which summons that icicle in the top right, as you can see, and it gives us like chill clip on all of our weapons, basically. Just a little bit of extra slow damage every time we shoot our weapons. You won't notice it terribly often if you're using Dead Messenger, but it's just there as an extra, which is quite nice. You know, if you guys have used Rhymecoat Raiment before, you know that it's a pretty solid exotic for Stasis Warlock. So that is going to be the main basis of the build. Again, it is the 4-piece full prophecy because it effectively gives us Demolitionist on our crystals, and then we are using Rhymecoat Raiment as well for the crowd control aspect. Now, I did also want to mention the 2-piece from the prophecy set because it also helps as well with stats. It says final blows with light weapons grant stacks of light polarity, which grants grenade stat. And actually this stacks up to 5 times, and at that maximum stack count, it is a plus 40 to your grenade stat, which is pretty nice. So if your stat is a little bit lacking, such as mine here, I would have preferred having 100 default, but that's okay if I get kills with Dead Messenger. With the 2-piece from the prophecy set, this goes to 120 effectively, so it is still maxing out my effective grenade regen, which is quite nice. Getting into the subclass makeup though, on how to best maximize this setup, I'm going with Healing Rift here for some extra heals. Of course, Penumbral Blast is what we are locked to, but for the grenade choice, I'm going with the Shatter Grenade because out of all of these stasis grenades, this one has the lowest cooldown. It's 145, whereas all of the others are 212, 256. So because this one has the lowest cooldown, it's just going to mesh the best with this build. For the aspects, we are taking Glacial Harvest. This one states that picking up stasis shards grants stacks of frost armor. While you have frost armor, defeating combatants with stasis or kinetic weapons may cause them to shatter, damaging other nearby foes. The shatter chance increases with your frost armor stacks. And finally, taking damage while you have frost armor generates grenade energy, which is pretty solid. This is a very good aspect. This is going to be the main way that we get frost armor, which is our main damage resist verb, which at the maximum stack count is going to be a 50% damage resist, which is very, very good. Frost armor is one of the best damage resist verbs in the game, if not the best. For the second aspect, we have Bleak Watcher, of course. This is our stasis turrets. This is what allows us to synergize with Rhymecoat in the first place and create all of these crowd control objects all over the battlefield. Simply press and hold your grenade to convert it into a stasis turret. Now, for the fragments, the first first one you want is Whisper of Conduction. It states that nearby stasis shards track to your position. It is just a quality of life fragment. However, I would say that if you are making any sort of stasis build, you must have this one because the quality of life that you get from it is simply the best. Having to not run to your shards is really, really nice. Always use Whisper of Conduction, in my opinion, in your stasis builds. Plus, we get plus 10 health and plus 10 super from it, which is quite nice. For the second, we have Whisper of Rhyme. Your frost armor has increased duration and maximum stack count. This takes it from 5 stacks to 7 as the maximum, which gives us that 50% DR at that point. Third, we have Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this benefit. So whenever we break the crystals with our Dead Messenger, we are going to get improved grenade regen, which is even more grenade regen for our gameplay loop. And then finally, we have Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. Having frost armor increases the amount of energy gained. And this is just another way of gaining a bunch more grenade energy on top of what we already have. You could swap this fragment for something a little bit more quality of life if you wanted, because we are already gaining a bunch of nade regen, something like Whisper of Impetus or Whisper of Refraction if you wanted to get your rift down quite a lot. But I think Whisper of Torment is nice here, and I will forfeit the grenade stat just to be able to have the grenades up more often than usual. Now, moving on to the weapons, we spoke about it already. The reason we are taking Dead Messenger is because it's a very easy tool to use to break stasis crystals with. You don't necessarily have to use this, it's just rather convenient. Plus, it also has access to Demolitionist as one of these selectable perks, so kills with it will give you more grenade energy. This perk does not work on constructs like it does with the coda set, so if I actually take off the full coda set here, and if I was to make a grenade, if I get kills with Dead Messenger on these crystals, it will not give me any grenade energy, as you can see in the bottom left. The only reason that interaction works is because of the coda set, so like I said, that's kind of why you don't necessarily need Dead Messenger, but because it has Demolitionist and because it is also good at breaking crystals, it kind of fits in quite nicely. Though actually, if you wanted, you could use Forbearance and the specific version from Onslaught, because it gets Demolitionist as well, but it also has the Indomitability origin trait, which gives you even more grenade energy on kills, so that is an option, but I personally prefer Dead Messenger, and it is what I will advocate for. But basically, any weapon that has Demolitionist on it will work. You could go for like a Rufus's Fury in the top slot that has Demo and Chaos Reshape, that's quite nice. But actually, instead, what I've done is mint Retrograde, because we are running 200 weapons with this setup, and I can very freely run double special with that, so I've gone for a mint here with Beacon Rounds and Master of Arms. That's just my preference. I actually don't use the mint here very often in the gameplay. As you can see, it's mostly just Dead Messenger and the grenade, or the occasional barrier pop with my Chain of Command. By the way, I did want to showcase this weapon. This is quite a cool barrier option. It has Under Over and Adaptive Munitions, and is an adaptive frame, so it can break barriers. Both of these perks deal a ton of extra damage to combatant shields, and that does count with barriers, by the way. So if you didn't know this machine gun existed and you are looking for a way in your heavy slot to pop barriers with, this is certainly going to help. These two perks work together very nicely. So this is what I've been using in the gameplay that you're seeing in the background to pop barriers very, very quickly. And by the way, this weapon comes from solo ops, so if you want to focus it in the solo ops attunement, you can do that. Speaking of stats, let's get into that a little bit. We are going with 200 weapons, as I mentioned. The reason for this is because I want to be able to spam my Dead Messenger as much as possible, and having 200 will just mean that every special ammo brick that I spawn is guaranteed to be double sized, especially if you pair that on top of a scavenger mod on your boots. Going to be getting a ton of ammo, basically never going to be running out. Every time that I feel like I need a brick, I will be getting one, and I'll basically always be in the positive, in the green for my ammo count. Plus, it's going to mean that all of my weapons deal a maximum 15% for primary and special, and 10% increased damage versus all enemy types in PvE. As for the rest of my stats, I have 60 class, 90 super, 80 grenade, which again could be better, it could be 100, but it is made up by the 2-piece from the coda set, so don't worry about that. 30 melee because we don't really care about it, and then like 45 health just because the tertiaries on my armor are not the best. I didn't farm too much prophecy on my warlock, so it is what it is. You could maybe get a little bit more melee, a little bit more grenade here and there. That's just the reality of armor farming, unfortunately. But the main thing is have high weapon stat, preferably 200, then a good amount in super and grenade, and the rest doesn't really matter. In terms of the pieces that allowed me to get to this distribution, my helmet is powerhouse with a tertiary stat in grenade and a tuning in grenade. My gloves are powerhouse with a tertiary stat in health, could be better, and tuning in grenade. My Rhymecoat raiment is gunner with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in weapons. My boots are powerhouse with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in melee. And then finally, my class item is gunner with a tertiary stat in the dreaded health stat, and then a tuning in class. Taking a look at the artifact now, this is also where we're going to get a lot of good survivability options and some nice quality of life stasis things that just add to the overall setup. So starting with the tier 3 mods, the first one one we have is Served Cold. It says picking up a Stasis Shard grants you class ability energy, so on top of the melee energy it already gives, we're just getting a little bit of a boost to our class as well. We're also taking Kinetic Impacts as a tier 3. Sustained damage with a grenade launcher increases the reload speed of grenade launchers and triggers a damaging kinetic shockwave. This is only to act as a small amount of extra damage for Dead Messenger. Then quite possibly the most important mod, which is a tier 2, this is Curative Orbs. Collecting an elemental pickup, collecting an orb of power, or destroying a tangle grants you a small amount of health. And this is not small, it is 40 HP. It is a very large amount, and with the sheer number of stasis shards that we are going to be creating with this build from simply breaking all of our crystals or shattering frozen targets, this is going to be triggering incredibly often, so we are basically never going to die with this mod equipped. It is seriously one of the best artifact perks in the game across all 7 of them. I would wholeheartedly recommend using it with this build. Next up, we have Hail the Storm as our second tier 2. Shattering frozen targets and stasis crystals deals increased damage, and shattering stasis crystals releases shards of ice that damage and slow targets. Then for our last tier 2, we have Weakened Clear. When using a grenade launcher, damaging a boss, damaging a champion, or breaking a combatant shield reloads your stowed weapons and weakens the combatant. So we just have a little bit of access to weaken whenever coming against champions or mini bosses, for example. Then the last tier 1 mods I have chosen are Total Carnage, to make it so after finishing a powerful combatant, you gain temporary damage resistance and replenish health. This is resist times 2, which is a 25% DR, which is pretty good. And then also I have Crystalline Converter, to make it so after activating your class ability, your next stasis weapon final blow creates a stasis shard, and gathers stasis shards to gain stacks of Crystalline Converter, which causes your next powered stasis melee hit to create stasis crystals equal to the number of stacks you have. So just another source of crystals for whenever we use our melee, which in turn will fuel our grenade even more. Finishing up with the armor mods. For the helmet, I'm taking 1 copy of Special Ammo Finder and 1 Special Ammo Scout if I'm ever running in a group scenario, plus a Void Siphon so that kills with my Dead Messenger will make orbs. For the gloves, we have a grenade kickstart so that every time we use our stasis turret, we gain a small amount of energy to it back immediately, a Void Loader for quality of life with Dead Messenger, and a bolstering detonation to get a bit more class ability energy with grenade hits. For the chest piece, I have a Charged Up as well as 2 resist mods like usual. For the boots, I have Stacks on Stacks and Elemental Charge, because this is going to make it so when we collect stasis shards, we gain armor charge very rapidly, and then a Void Scavenger so that I never run out of ammo with Dead Messenger. Finally, for the class item, I have Time Dilation, a class font, and Powerful Attraction to make fonts last longer and just a little bit of extra class stat. As far as the optimal gameplay loop for this build is concerned, it is simply just getting up close with the enemies, chucking a stasis turret down, breaking the crystals with Dead Messenger, and then spamming over and over again. You will get your grenades back repeatedly. You don't even need kills for the loop to work. That is the beauty of stasis builds, and you can just continue doing the fun crowd control loop over and over again, which is super fun. Fashion wise, this piece is not actually mine. Shout out to Quantic for this one. It is a very clean Warlock setup that I'm a big fan of, so thank you to him for letting me use this in the video. If you would like your fashion to be featured in future builds, definitely come and join the Discord and I'll take a look, and if there's one that I particularly like, I might decide to include it in the video. But shout out to Quantic for this one. It's a very nice Warlock setup. But as always, guys, the dim link for this build is going to be in the description box down below for you to copy hassle-free. And with that, we have come to the end of the video. So I hope you enjoyed the build, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.